currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning around. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is Friday, February 14th, 2014. That means it's Valentine's Day, 2014. Now, I'm not going to be one to buy into the whole Valentine's Day holiday too much and tell people, go out and buy your lovey-dove a card and all this crap. I mean, after all, it was invented by companies to market you crap that you wouldn't otherwise buy any other day of the year. How much money you think is made in flower deliveries and stupid teddy bears and chocolates and greeting cards and everything else? That doesn't mean that you can't use the occasion to tell someone that you love them. Of course, you shouldn't need a special occasion to tell someone you love that you love them. You should just tell them that you love them. I mean, it's really not that hard. We've been programmed to think that giving love and showing love is hard. Tattoos that say love sucks. Stickers that say love sucks. T-shirts, love sucks. Love kills. Love hurts. And then, of course, anybody that's ever gotten cheated on or they're heartbroken, well, they feel the same way. Love's actually not that hard to give. You shouldn't need a special holiday once a year to do it. You should be able to do it every day of the year. 365 days of the year, you should be able to go around and give love. Or tell someone that you're with that you do love, that you love them. Don't waste your time. Don't wait until they're sick or something happens to them and then you feel bad. Well, now I feel bad because I never said anything. Just do it. You don't need some stupid holiday to do it. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day to the people that do buy into that. For the ladies, happy Valentine's Day for you. I hope your hubbies and your boyfriends at least did something nice for you. Maybe you, like I said, use the occasion to say, babe, you know, I don't like spending money on Valentine's Day and stuff like that, but I love you. Give her a hug, a kiss, maybe take her out to dinner. Of course, again, you don't need Valentine's Day for that. You should do that maybe if you can afford to once a month, maybe once every couple months or whatever. Maybe make her a special dinner. I don't know, do something special for her. Anyway, shouldn't need a special holiday for it. There's my Valentine's Day rant. I'm just so over these commercialized holidays, and people run around. I see, people waiting till the last minute. I've seen fights, arguments, women getting mad. You didn't get me anything. All my friends got something. Wow. Really? You're gonna judge your relationship based on whether or not your husband or your boyfriend bought you something. Good relationship. Yeah, you guys are gonna last and weather the storm. People wonder why divorce rates are up. Anyway, enough ranting on that subject. There's a few things I want to get into tonight. One of them being, we've actually now lost more people to police than we have to terrorists and in the Iraq war. Yeah, we'll get into that. So do we really need a war on terror? Shouldn't we be focusing on the war on the police state, maybe? I mean, war on everything. What would the war on the police state be like? I wonder how they would work that one out. Would they arrest themselves? That would be interesting. A few other things I want to get into, including second hour, I'm going to play an interview. I'm working on getting this gentleman on for an interview myself, but I recently heard an interview, actually it was early this morning, it was released yesterday, by American Free Press, and they interviewed, they put it up in podcast format on their website, and I since downloaded it from YouTube because I had found the original, not the original article, but the original video that I ripped. Somebody had taken the podcast and they had put together a quick video for YouTube with it. So I ripped that really quick and mirrored it on one of my channels so it could get some more views so people could hear what it has to say, and it's just gone viral on both of the YouTube channels. And I'm sure on American Free Press's website as well, because I posted an article about it on Federal Jack today, and it went mega viral. It's one of my busiest articles since I've had the site. It ranks up there, I would say, in the top 15 articles that I have on that site, and the site has well over 12,000, 14,000, something like that, posts on it. I'd have to look in the thing that's, got thousands and thousands and thousands of posts, and I would say in the top 15, this article is one of them. So what's it about? Well, it's about Sandy Hook. This guy is the gentleman being interviewed is a school safety expert, and you'll hear him talk about. It's about 45 minutes long, so I'm going to use up most of the second hour for this interview, so you guys can hear what he has to say. He brings good points. He doesn't believe that anybody was killed. He thinks the whole thing was staged and fake. Now, a lot of people, they don't like that, even in the conspiracy angle, they don't like that idea. And usually people that bring it across get attacked. But this guy's a retired or a former, retired Florida state trooper. He worked in the school industry, or whatever you want to call it, the schools, education, whatever, for between 20 and 30 years, something like that. His specialty is school safety. And he'll get into a little bit of his background in the interview for like a minute or two. You'll hear him talk about it. But this guy is, it's like I said in it's quoted in the article. He's not your average run-of-the-mill quote-unquote conspiracy theorist. Meaning, he's not somebody that when the pejorative label of conspiracy theorist is used, he's not somebody that you would picture. You know what I'm saying? Usually people picture some guy in his basement in his boxer shorts and his mom's basement with a tinfoil hat on his head, right? With like X-Files posters on the wall. And this guy shatters that stereotype that the powers that shouldn't be have tried to claim. We all fit into. And I mean, there's lots of us that have shattered that paradigm a long time ago and explained, that whole meme away. But when it comes to Sandy Hook and people, again, they look at I don't know if, even myself, I've said, I don't know if it was completely faked. Maybe it really happened and they twisted it, whatever. And, maybe the kid was mind controlled and they sent him in there, whatever. This gentleman thinks the whole thing was staged, but the way he brings about the evidence and the points he brings, he does so from an investigator standpoint. And he does it without emotion. He does it without getting all crazy. He does it without even diving off what I would consider to be the deep end of the conspiracy pool. He lays it out very just plainly and easily to understand. So I want to play that. I'm going to give the whole second hour to that. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm trying to get him on so I can interview him myself because I want to get into it even, deeper with him. But this is a good interview with this guy. And his name's Wolfgang, and I want to get it out there because, who knows? Maybe I, something could happen. What happens to these people? Every time someone comes out, they have an accident or something. So, just in case I don't ever get a chance to interview them, I want you guys to hear it. You guys know anyway, if you've been listening to my radio show long enough, that I don't have a problem playing audio and not talking, especially if it's important stuff and stuff that you need to be exposed to. So we'll get into that second hour. And there's a few other things. Where's the other one I wanted to talk about? There was one other thing. I'll play that second. I'll play that in the second segment. I have a video clip from Aaron and Melissa. Aaron Dykes, Melissa Melton, my buddies over at True Stream Media. They've been on the broadcast before, you guys all know. Good friends of mine. Aaron did a video, put the video together of exposing Rand Paul. And showing that here's proof that this guy's just controlled opposition, and you shouldn't jump on the Rand wagon, as they call it, instead of the bandwagon. Yes, clever use of terminology, the Rand wagon. And everybody's jumping on the Rand wagon. Oh, he's like his father. No, he's not. He's completely different. That apple fell far from the tree, rolled down the hill, fell on the back of a garbage boat, and ended up going down the Hudson River. Okay? He's completely thousands of miles different from his father. Nothing like him. Anyway, and we shouldn't it just goes to show you shouldn't idolize one individual and then his offspring just because they share the same last name. Maybe none of this would happen, right? None of this confusion over these politicians, whether they're really good or not, would happen if people would stop looking to them to be their superheroes. If we looked to them more like, you're the manager of my McDonald's and you're not running my McDonald's properly, you're fired, because we are the franchise owners. But they have that reverse. They have us thinking in reverse. These senators and congressmen, you try to talk to them and they act like they're too good to talk to you. I'm a congressman. I'm a senator. So? You're the manager at a McDonald's and you suck. You're not managing my McDonald's right. You're fired. How does that sound? I could go off on that for hours. Anyway, two things I want to get into before the break comes up. We got about, 15, 18 minutes? Let me see here. We got enough time. Yeah, I got about 15 minutes. Cool. I got plenty of time to do this. First things first. New York anti-gun zealot arrested for taking gun to school. Wants absolution. What? Oh, yes. Dwayne Ferguson is a community activist, and he's a vehement anti-gun campaigner. And he worked tirelessly to push New York's gun-grabbing SAFE Act. And one of in the legislation, the wording says that if you go into a school, you cannot carry a gun on you at all unless you are a uniformed police officer on duty. So you have to be in uniform and on duty to be able to carry your gun inside of a school in New York. And this guy went to, I guess his kids are at the school, went to go pick up went to the school for whatever reason, and he forgot that he happened to have a gun on him. What? An anti-gun pusher? An anti-gun crowd rabble-rouser? An anti-gun legislator has a gun? Surprise, surprise. He's also got a carrier's permit, concealed weapons permit. Doesn't want you to have guns, but he's got one. Talk about hypocritical. Gee, I wonder why that is. Doesn't want everybody to be on an equal playing field with him. If I have the gun, you can't have one. That way I have power over you. Sounds like a dictator. Little mini dictators in their own right. Anyway, so this guy goes to the school, forgets he's got a gun in his pocket, gets arrested. He doesn't want to be sentenced, and he wants the charges dropped. He says that, they should drop the charges. They should just drop the charges. Because, he doesn't have to follow the same law that he helped push. Duh. He pleaded not guilty to the crime, saying he should be given a pass because he merely, quote-unquote, forgot that he had his pistol on him. And since he has a legal concealed carry permit, he thinks he should be let off the hook. But that's not the rule that he fought so hard to enact. See, again, thanks in part to his own efforts, it's currently illegal to bring a gun into a school unless you are an on-duty police officer. Hello? Period. There are no other exceptions. Done. And of course you have people, the other people, that anti-gunners that are trying to get him released. Oh, well, it was just a simple mistake. Okay, but what happens if one of the parents who happens to have a legal concealed weapons permit and isn't a politician and doesn't have political connections forgets that he's got his in his pocket? Well, that's different because he violated the law. But you're using the same excuse. Well, it's different because I'm a politician. So you want to pass laws that all of us have to follow. But you yourself, no, you don't have to follow so much. You could do what you want. You simply forgot. It slipped your mind, and you should be let go. Take, for instance, the pleads from his pal, Reverend James Giles, in the pages of the Buffalo News. I'm sure Dwayne went into the school not thinking he had the gun on him. We know this for a fact, that he called out to a Buffalo police lieutenant asking why the school was in lockdown and that they were looking for a man with a gun. So apparently, I guess there was rumors when he went to the school. I guess, I don't know if he was the individual they were looking for, but it was reported that I guess somebody had a gun and he went to the school to pick up his kids. Still, no excuse. That's even worse. You run to the school where there's supposedly a active gunman on the scene, right? Which they never found, by the way. Right. Panic. Sandy Hook. We'll get into that hour two. But you show up at the school with your gun that you quote-unquote forgot was in your pocket. You don't maybe think you should check, I have a concealed weapons permit. I know I had my gun on me somewhere. Can I tell you something? I don't forget I have my gun on me. I don't. There have been a couple times where maybe I got out at a place and I was at a place maybe I wasn't allowed to walk into with a concealed weapon. And I realized as I was walking in or after I had just walked in, and I quickly turned around and walked back out the door and then took care of what I had to and then came back in. Okay? I can understand that, but in a situation where you're going to a school where you hear the term active shooter, you have a gun on you. The thought never crossed your mind that I might pull in and this guy could be running across the parking lot, and what am I going to do to protect myself? Maybe I'll just bring my gun with me. After all, I'm a politician. Maybe that's what happened, huh? Maybe that's what happened. Maybe we wouldn't even have these problems if perhaps people weren't acting on emotion based off of a story that was pushed to them via the media about a bunch of dead kids being shot up in the school, and oh my God, guns, and people with guns are scary, and oh my God, mental health, oh my God, be afraid. And now ever since a kid farts at school, and they're like, oh my God, that could be a gun hidden in there. That's what pushed the fart out. Not enough room. Must be an extra high capacity magazine hidden inside of his stomach. I mean, that's just lunacy. They threw a kid out. They wanted to expel him. I think they finally let him back in, but a couple of months back, it's back in like 2013, but probably about 5-6 months ago now, he chewed his Pop-Tart into the shape of a mountain. And they said it wasn't even a gun. It wasn't like he was chewing it into the shape of a gun. The teacher perceived it to be the shape of a gun and therefore felt threatened and felt that the student was threatening all the other students. What? What? Kids getting in trouble for playing with airsoft guns? Airsoft. We played with cap guns and stuff when I was a kid. We had toy machine guns and everything else. We weren't running around killing each other and dismembering each other. Maybe it has something to do with the media and all the violence in the media. Maybe it has something to do with the violent video games. I know people love to argue this point with me, but first-person video games were originally invented by the military. Okay, the concept came from them. The video game nerds took that concept and ran with it, and they made it so well. So they made such strides in technology when it comes to video gaming and stuff that the Pentagon later on went back to them and asked them to help them upgrade their stuff. But the original first-person shooter idea comes from the military. DARPA. This stuff comes from them. So they already know that they can program people via shooting. So what happens when you have one of these video games that emulates shooting? How do you solve all the problems in video games? You have to shoot it. I mean, how do you get extra ammo? You shoot the container to open up the container to get the ammo in it, right? You unlock a door, you shoot it. How does the hero in the movies, open up a door if it's locked? Doesn't try to pick the lock, doesn't try to credit card the lock anymore like old school. Oh, no, just, I'll be John Wayne it. I shot the door, and yeah, that'll fit right in the plot line because we're in the building and we're supposed to be quiet, but nobody else will hear me blowing the lock off the door. Okay, so this stuff's, if you think about it with any semblance of logic when watching these films or these TV shows, you're like, okay, this really doesn't make sense. Some people would have heard that, right? You can't do that if you want to be quiet. You know, there's probably security cameras that would notice that stuff, right? But nope, kids don't understand that. Their brains are still young. All they see in the media and on TV is that the good guy solves every problem with a gun, whether it be a puzzle, whether it be violence, against another human being, whatever. The gun is always the gun and the violence, the shooting is always the solution. Okay? What do you expect these kids to do when they have a problem and they don't know how to handle it? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, think about this for a second. Just use your frigging brains for one moment, please. You're all smart individuals. I don't care what the powers that shouldn't be say. You're all smart. Use your brain for a second. Think about it. Think back to when you were even in your early 20s. Now think back to something, pick something, whatever it may be, that you can think about, that you've been able to look back now, maybe you're in your mid to late 30s, 40s, whatever, or older, and you look back now, and you're able to, you've already looked back, and you've dealt with whatever, you issue it was or whatever, you've looked back on it, and you've said, wow, I thought completely different than I did, 10, 15 years ago. Why did I think like that? Now it makes sense why I did this or I made this mistake, right? And you've looked back on it and you've let yourself off the hook for it finally. Maybe you were mad at yourself. Okay, well, if you were thinking differently in your 20s, right, about whatever random crap that I made you bring up in your own head there for a minute, don't you think that you are also susceptible to programming if you look back on that and you go, wow, why did I think like that? Well, I was scared. I was younger. When you look back now, maybe you should also contemplate, well, maybe I could have been manipulated. Or maybe people of that age group can be manipulated more easily because their brains aren't fully developed. So you don't have the mature thoughts that you do now, right? Hence, going back and having that introspection where you're like, well, when I was 21, I made this mistake, and I forgive it now because look at how young I was and I understand. You don't have that view, that you don't have that you're not at that point in your life where you can look back until you're in your mid 30s, maybe early 40s, right? When we're young, we don't understand things the way we do when we're older. Why do you think they target things to the younger audience? I know there's older guys, in their 30s, 40s that play first-person shooters, and I'm sure there's even older people that might have gotten turned onto it here or there, but not so much. Their target audience is always the younger crowd, because eventually the younger crowd gets older, and they might take some of the video gaming and stuff with them into their generation, like my generation has, but as they get older. But they're targeting the youth because they're changing the way they think, and you can see it by the way these kids act, by the way when these kids solve they solve every problem with violence. They beat up on each other. They pick on each other. They from the time they go to school, they're looking at each other. Oh, you're different because you don't wear the same clothes I do, or you're black, or you're white, or you're Latino, or you're Asian, you're Jewish, you're Christian, you're Muslim. Your parents are rich. Your parents are poor. Your mommy and daddy are doctors and lawyers. Ooh, your parents work at the supermarket. You're the poor dirtbag kid. Do you understand where I'm going with this? We are formulating these children's thoughts. We're literally twisting these kids' thoughts. Okay? This younger generation, we're formulating the way they're going to view the world as adults. Hello? Think back to when you were a kid. You don't think that video games and media has any effect on these kids? You don't think that has anything to do with the way they emulate things in school? Nah, I'm sure not. Do what thou willst. Yeah, that's a really good message to send to kids. Right. Teach them Aleister Crowley's motto. That's really awesome. A lot of it has to do, everybody says, oh, it's a technology. Well, technology, but a lot of it has to do with how parents have been brainwashed into relying on said technology like TVs and iPads and iPhones and all this other garbage to occupy your child's time. When I was a kid, there was none of that. My mother knew when I was doing something, even if she wasn't near me. If she was 100 miles away, she had this sixth sense because she knew her children. She understood my brother and I. It's much different nowadays. It's easier to manipulate your child, too, and control what they think. That's what they're doing. I could go off about this for hours. And it's exactly what they're doing. They're twisting the way they think. Sandy Hook's doing it. The story of Sandy Hook, they have teachers and parents so scared that they're programming their own kids. They're pumping that fear into these kids. Oh my God, you're going to get shot. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then they pass laws that they don't want to obey themselves when they, quote unquote, forget. But again, if it was you or me and you forgot or I forgot, we'd be in jail. But he wants to get let off the hook. Typical. All right, we're going to break. Stay tuned. When we get back, Police State, Aaron and Melissa, and then we get into Sandy Hook. Stay tuned. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Get right back into this Police State news. I'll read this article really quick, and then I'm going to get into Aaron's video that he put out about Rand Paul exposing him. Article from Filming Cops, filmingcops.com. Check out their website. Americans killed by cops now outnumber Americans killed in the Iraq War. Cops have killed well over 5,000 Americans since 9/11. Many of these killings have occurred during no-knock raids, which have risen by 4,000% since the 1980s. Iraqi insurgents, by comparison, have killed around 3,500 Americans in Iraq since 9/11 in Operation Iraqi Freedom. It's not just Iraq. The number of Americans killed by police also now exceeds the number of Americans killed by Afghan insurgents. Afghan insurgents have killed around 2,000 Americans in Afghanistan since 9/11 in Operation Enduring Freedom. The police are getting paid with our money to go on shooting sprees, and they are killing more of us than the terrorists from whom they, quote-unquote, protect us from. Do not be surprised. This data is to be expected. It naturally fits with the fact that the state uses counterterrorism as a means to oppress and initiate violence against the population. In fact, you are 8 times more likely to be killed by a cop than an actual terrorist. Domestic violence is 4 times more common among police families than American families in general. As of 2010, the compared data lifted from Cato's NPM-SRP shows that the reports of police committing sexual assault amounted to more than 2 times the reports in the entire general population. If officer-involved killings were prosecuted as murder, the murder rate for law enforcement officers would exceed the general population murder rate by at least 472%. Read that again, because this is an important fact, and this is an important point to make. That because these officers that go around wantonly killing people and shooting people, they're never held liable for it. Rarely are they held accountable for it. Maybe at the most they're fired, but they're not held really accountable. And if they lose their job, they can just go get a job with another police department. I've seen cops get fired from one police department down here. Like with my own 2 eyes, not articles. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Cops get fired from a police department, and less than a week later, they're working for another city. Less than a week later. The city doesn't care why they were fired. They need a cop, and this guy's got experience. We need to. It's a methodology that we need to stop. It's the way they think. We can't combat this police state just by running up and hating on the cops either, by the way. When I read you this stuff, I don't want you to get enraged and run out and do something stupid. Because that just plays into the powers that shouldn't be's hands. I've explained that. They want to play us off against the cops. You need to understand that they're doing it. There's a problem. And then we need to understand why. It's obviously the training that they're going through and the fact that they're pumped up on fear 24/7. Now we understand why and what's causing it. Now we need to fix it. Okay? Let me reread that last sentence again for you. If officer-involved killings were prosecuted as murder, the murder rate for law enforcement officers would exceed the general population murder rate by at least 472%. So that means we need to start holding police officers, sheriff's deputies, government agents accountable. You kill somebody, you can't just pull the trigger and say, I got a badge. The badge doesn't give you a right to kill. And I don't care if the state tells you that it does. It does not. Just because the government told you some dick in a suit who you call your boss tells you it's okay to go kill another human being because you have a special badge that gives you that privilege, you do not. You do not. I'll repeat it one more time for you thick-headed people that think that it's okay. You don't have the right to do it. You don't. You do not. You're wrong. Your attitude sucks. You're nothing but a bully with a friggin' costume. That costume is what gives you power, and that's all that has the power. You take that costume off, you're nothing. You're nothing but a physical representation of the state's tyranny. And you're willingly do it. And your excuse is, well, I need a paycheck to feed my family. Well, go do something that's more effective at making society a better place or making the world a better place. Being a cop is not one of them. Again, you're more likely to be killed. You're 8 times more likely to be killed by a cop than you are a terrorist. What's the real problem? And these are not the only reported incidents. The vast majority of police misconduct and abuse is unreported. So who knows what the actual total really is? While we're at it, over 250 million human beings were killed by government last century alone, making government the leading cause of unnatural death in the 20th century. This doesn't include casualties from all the wars that government started to protect us. The number of Americans in prison now exceeds the number of high school teachers and engineers in the country. We have more people locked up in prison than we have high school teachers and engineers combined. But that's okay, because we need a law enforcement country, Popeye. What are you for, felons and criminals running around? No, I'm not. But prisons are for profit. Why do you think every year there's 40,000 new laws put on the books that could send you to jail? Dummy. It's for you. It's not for the black guy living down the street. Ah, screw him. He's black. I don't care. I'm white. I'll never go to jail. Oh, you will. They'll make something that you do illegal one day, putz. And you'll end up in jail just like everybody else. When they run out of minorities, well, then they start going after the poor white folk, don't they? When they run out of them, then what are they going to put in jail? When everybody that's poor and all the quote unquote minorities are locked up, then what? Then who are they going to target? Oh, they wouldn't target anybody. They'd stop there, right? Because any tyrant, any tyranny in history, any tyrant in history has ever stopped. Ever. Right? No, they haven't. Duh. It's not going to go away. It's there to protect us. We need cops that look like Darth Vader. It's a scary world, Popeye. You don't understand. There's terrorists all over the place. No, there's not. You know what's all over the place? Irrational fear. That's what's all over the place. Complete and utter irrational fear. Fed by the powers that shouldn't be and their lackeys over at the mainstream media. Fear, 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 fear. Oh my God, scary. Fear, 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 fear. Ah, fear, 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 fear. Oh my Lord. Fear, 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 fear. Terror, 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 terror. 9/11, 9/11. It's justified because, hey, 9/11. Sandy Hook, 9/11, fear. Out of control. That's why you see this going on. They're lapdogs, and make no mistake, jackboot thugs, no matter if you're in the military or if you're in the police force or sheriff's department, if you are a jackboot, if you are one of these that willingly follows orders, well, even if you're not, I mean, even if you're awake, well, then kudos to you, you're not a jackboot, but to the thugs out there that think, well, I'm part of this system, so they'll take care of me. No, they won't. They don't care about you. Genius. You think they're going to take care of you and give you a pension? Really? Really? Maybe you should pay attention. Oh, that's right. You're not allowed to usually pay attention to the news. I don't get involved in politics. I'm a soldier. I'm a Marine. That's my job. My job is to do what the government tells me to do. You're an idiot. Because you know what? You're going to get shot, and then when you have to go get taken care of, they're not going to take care of you properly. And then if you survive all of that and you end up getting discharged because maybe your disability is horrible, good luck getting benefits from the government. See, because when you get out, the military doesn't take care of you medically anymore. So your medical needs, now you have to go to the VA. Oh, but you got to sign in and log in and register with the VA. That's not a day process. That takes forever. Good luck getting your medical files transferred over too, by the way. Oh, it's different now, Popeye. It's all streamlined. Sure. I'm telling you, the state won't take care of you, okay? Stop being their obedient lapdogs. Stop running around, oh, I love the government. I love the state. Oh, when my masters tell me to subjugate somebody, well, let's go. You realize what you're doing, right? I'm not talking about the people that are in the military that wake up and realize what's going on, I'm talking about the ones that they justify their actions. Or the cops, too. We're at a war with scum. No, you're at a war with your own ego, and you need to put that shit in check, okay? Your masters are feeding you with fear. You guys realize that they call you their dogs. Why do you think they give us dog tags in the military? I'm a vet. I was in the military just like you guys. I was an idiot once. Except I wasn't the jackboot guy. I was the guy that, like, when we were taught this stuff, I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is kind of like violating so many things. And yeah, I was that guy. And there was a lot of those. There's more good people than I would say bad. But there's enough bad to make it a problem. At least in the military. Police forces, Let's say it's about 50-50, if not going maybe 60-40 towards, more bad now than good. It used to be the other way around, but not anymore. And that's because the good guys, they get older, they retire, and they get pressured, they get pushed out, and then they replace them with somebody who will just follow orders. So, do we get mad at the soldier or the individual police officer? To a certain degree, yes. They are accountable for their own actions. But that's a symptom of the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is what they're taught. The problem is the mindset that they're being put in before they go out on the street. They're being put in the fear mode. And then they don't know what to expect. They're on edge. And don't get me wrong. I mean, you pull somebody over, you never know what to expect on pulling somebody over on a traffic stop. I understand there are dangerous individuals out there. I get it. But you can't have the attitude of it's me first and everybody else second. No, then you shouldn't be doing that job. You signed up for that job. Okay? That's like signing up to be a soldier or a Marine, combat infantry, and then you turn around and start whining that you're getting shot at. Well, you knew what you were getting into. I'm not saying you can't whine about getting sent to a country to fight for lies and stuff, but I'm saying you can't go into a job knowing what that job does and then bitch when there's danger involved in that job. That's what you do. You chose to do that job. Like I get it. I get you get shot at. There's a-holes out there. Look, I get it. I did boardings. I know what it's like to wear a bulletproof vest and a gun on your hip and not know if you're going to come back from, that particular patrol or that little mission, whatever you're doing. I know. I get it. I still didn't randomly shoot people. I controlled myself. You should too. You have training. Just running around randomly shooting people because you're afraid does not help anything. In fact, it's making the people more pissed off. And then what happens? See, by the general public getting mad, that fuels what the cops are taught. Because they're taught that people don't understand them, that, it's a job that blah, 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 blah. No one really cares. It's, not enough credit for what we do. This, that, the other thing. And what happens? That fuels that because they see people getting pissed off. It's a game. It's like chess. The only way to actually win this game is to not keep playing the other player. In this instance, it'd be the police and the civilians. We need to stop fighting. We need to get them, the police, the jackboots, we need to get them away and out of the fear vibe. We need to get them to start thinking logically and rationally again and understanding that they are us. They're not part of the elites. They're with us. You're being used against us, and then you're going to be tossed away. History has shown this, how this happens all the time. Pay attention. Okay? History has a tendency to repeat itself. If we pay attention to history, if we pay attention to it, it's kind of like having an instruction manual, okay? It's like having an instruction manual. And if we just even slightly pay attention to it, even in the slightest bit, we can learn from it. All right, I'm going to play this clip from Aaron and Melissa really quick. I'm not going to be able to probably get all of it in because ranting and raving, I didn't keep an eye on the time, but I'm going to get most of it in here for you. And if I have to, I can I can always add it to the archive later on. But I'm going to play this. This is about Rand Paul. And again, I'm going to this is from Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton. I want to let this play as much as I can to fit as much of this in to the clip as I can. So here we go. This is Rand Paul. Why Rand Paul? Some evidence that Rand Paul is controlled opposition. He's hanging out with the Bushes.
This right here speaks volumes. I'm still angry about it after days. Rand Paul meeting with George P. Bush. I'm going to give you several reasons why this is important, but look out. I'm going to call it like I see it. It's Aaron and Melissa here for True Street Media.
Hey, guys.
And this is a major blow right here. Rand Paul meeting with George P. Bush. Dream ticket of the future? Well, who is George P. Bush? If you don't know, he's the grandson of President George H.W. Bush, the nephew of George W. Bush, son of Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida. And he's also, as you can see, slightly Hispanic Bush because his mother's from Mexico. So they're now going to flaunt him out as Bush from the Fourth Dynasty, who's going to appeal to Hispanics and keep them in the GOP party. How just in your face and insulting is that if you're Hispanic? Not that we should even vote based on our ethnicities. There's his father, Jeb Bush. And George P. Bush has been secretly running for office ever since he was a little tiny child.
They've been grooming him for this for a very long time.
I personally saw him in 2000 on his uncle George W. Bush's victory night, which became a disputed night with the hanging chads and everything when he won for president. And they rolled this kid out and said, someday he'll be president too. Today, he's running for land commissioner in Texas, a little-known but powerful position with interesting powers over land rights.
I think it's like fourth in the state.
Yeah.
Eminent domain.
Here he is with all his cheesy photos, shaking people's hands. I will never compromise on anything. I pledge I'm a Bush. Look who he's named after, George P. Bush, P for Prescott, the U.S. Senator who also was a banker who helped finance Hitler and the Nazis, where he worked under Averell Harriman, himself an important industrial titan, magnate, and political campaigner.
Yeah, that sounds like someone who really cares about the Hispanic vote.
Yeah, all the controversy behind the Bush family. And by the way, Prescott Bush playing an important role in helping to set up the CIA and establish the shadow network that now rules us today and causes the Bush family to think that they're entitled to be hereditary president kings over the failed, compromise, infiltrated republic.
Oh, but Rand Paul's just meeting with him because he's going to infiltrate from the inside.
Rand Paul, here he is, infiltrating from the inside with George P. Bush. You heard it first here, whatever. He's also been doing these uncomfortable things like endorsing Mitch McConnell, typical establishment shill inside the GOP party from his fellow state in Kentucky. And, of course, we all remember when he endorsed Mitt Romney. How disgusting was that, and how close was it to the Bilderberg meeting date, the turning point
It was
as
that
well
same
in the
week.
election?
I mean, it was during the meeting, basically.
His bowing down to Mitt Romney pretty much forecluded his father running a successful or even launching a third-party campaign run. And look what he said on Glenn Beck about why he endorsed Mitch McConnell just a few days ago. Well, he couldn't even explain it except that he got around to this point.
Will you agree with me that if we lose Texas, we lose the Republic of America?
Absolutely. Texas is the last bastion before we lose the Republic.
So he's going to save the Republic in Texas by working with the Bush family, the same family that destroyed the Bill of Rights and used it as toilet paper along with the Constitution via the Patriot Act and their complicity at a minimum in 9/11. Yeah, give me a break. Speaks volumes. Here they are in the Atlantic saying Rand Paul is a front runner for 2016, and he's got a number of things above all the other candidates who so far can't hack it. Above all, it's his hidden strength. It's worth remembering that the modern GOP almost never nominates first-time candidates. The exception, though, being George W. Bush, who has been the only one since 1980. Why? Because he used his father's political network to achieve his presidency. And Rand Paul enjoys the same benefit because he can use his father's Liberty campaign and specifically the political structure in Iowa and New Hampshire. But it won't be his father's party, and it won't be on behalf of his father's followers.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the other issues that somebody brought up the other day that I read is that Rand Paul's been meeting with quite a few other people besides just George P. Bush, people like Karl Rove. This is from the New York Times, Rand Paul's Mixed Inheritance, which came out January 25th, 2014. Apparently, the senator has been off to an exclusive resort in Mackinac Island, Michigan, where he was talking about the future of the party in the company of Karl Rove.
That's the same Karl Rove who's the top advisor to the Bush family.
And other power brokers. And his audience is Republican stalwarts sizing up possible presidential candidates. And Karl Rove has made it not even remotely a secret that he's been giving millions of dollars to both Senator Rand Paul and Marco Rubio here in Mediate. He's talking about this in February 2013, where they gave $30 million to Tea Party candidates, including Senator Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. And that's through his new PAC called the Conservative Victory Project. And if you go to that website here, it talks about how they have to elect savvy, strong leaders like Senator Ted Cruz, whose wife is part of the CFR, Rand Paul, Pat Toomey, Marco Rubio, Paul Ryan, and Governor Scott Walker. It's not the only PAC that he has. The other super PAC that Karl Rove owns is American Crossroads, a PAC that's no stranger to Rand Paul, considering his top advisor to both Rand Paul and Ron Paul, Trygve Olsen, has recently signed on with them.
And that's an individual that's been called out for specifically derailing the Ron Paul campaign. Karl Rove, of course, Bush's brain to George W. Bush, had his entire political rise when he was found by George H.W. Bush as a college young Republican and recruited to do Nixon dirty tricks. But he really made his name when he helped turn Texas from a blue state molded after LBJ into a red state that was strong in Bush and strong in Republicans. In particular, he got people like current Governor Rick Perry and people like former Senator Phil Gramm to switch from the Democrat Party and become Republicans backed by Rove and his use of data mining, phone banks, and targeted mailings to work demographics and turn, again, Texas into a blue state. So this brings us full circle. We've just showed you how Rand Paul is supported by Karl Rove established PACs, and now Rand Paul is out there campaigning, warning that Texas could turn blue, and therefore meeting with who else but George P. Bush from the Bush dynasty, who's going to help turn it around through his appeal to Hispanics. How stupid are we? If you're Hispanic, first of all, you shouldn't be voting just on the basis of skin color, but nonetheless, do you really think this guy represents your average Hispanic, or do you think he represents the Bush dynasty who's wanted him to be president since the day he was born? And there he is at a very tender young age, back
12.
when his grandfather was being elected to be president. I personally saw him in 2000, and they were talking about how he might be a future president. This is a politically ambitious family. In fact, they feel entitled. Let's not be a sucker, folks. Let's admit to the fact that we were all conned. I put my time and energy and money into the Ron Paul campaigns. It wasn't what we were told it was going to be. It was basically a preliminary step to launching Rand Paul, a big tent Republican with co-opted libertarian views, who's going to help to win one for the team, the grand old party team, and is willing to work alongside the Bush dynasty, if not be covertly backed by them.
I mean,
because that's where Karl Rove comes from, and that's who's backing Rand Paul. Don't forget about Peter Thiel from the Bilderberg clan.
I mean, this is the thing with Rand Paul. I mean, he's not his father. He's not his father. He doesn't believe exactly the same things as his father. And as much as you want to believe he's his father, he's not. And unfortunately, what we have here is a bunch of people who are still willing to put out that last glimmer of hope and believe that they can get inside the belly of the beast and change the monster. Unfortunately, that is just not going to happen. Historically, it's not happened, and it isn't going to happen now. These people who are evil and corrupt and are in control of things as the way they are have been that way for quite some time. They're not this stupid to believe that this guy is just playing the game. Are we really fooling anyone with this?
Stop it.
I'm going to pause it right there. They have about 3 minutes left to the video. If you go over to YouTube, just look up True Stream Media, or just look up Proof. Rand Paul is controlled opposition on YouTube, and you'll find the video. Go watch the whole thing, spread it around. Do not jump on the Rand wagon. Stop looking for superheroes to save you. You are your own superhero. If we all had that mindset, this country would change overnight. We're going to break. We'll be back with hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is February 14th, 2014. Valentine's Day edition 2014 of DTRH. Let's get right into the subject I want to cover here in hour number 2. As I said, I'm going to give as much time as I need to, pretty much the whole second hour, to an interview that the American Free Press did with a man by the name of Wolfgang W. Halbig. And I'm going to just let it play. I'm not going to go on too much about who he is because he gets into his background. I've already explained he's a former school security expert, or he is a school security expert. He's a former state trooper. He's been doing this for a very long time. He got harassed for looking into the official version, which he bought into for, you'll hear him say, for like about around the first week or so. And then he had a couple questions he started to look into. So I want to play this audio. Again, I am looking on getting Wolfgang on because I have a long list of questions, but I want you to sit down. Don't get distracted if you can. I mean, obviously, if you're driving or doing something, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. But if you have the opportunity, I would like you to get a pen, and that's why I'm giving you this chance now. Get a pad, a piece of paper, and a pen. Grab a glass of wine, a beer, a J, whatever your poison is, whatever you want. Grab it right now, okay? And sit back and listen to this. I want you to sit back just for a few, and I want you to listen. Try not to get distracted by other stuff because he brings up some good points about Sandy Hook. Now, again, you've often heard when people say that, oh, it wasn't done, it was faked, and they do bring up some good information, but a lot of times there's mixed in with that stuff. Sometimes they end up picking up on something that's misinformation, and that ends up debunking the whole thing, right? Well, just take a few minutes and listen to what Wolfgang has to say, because as I said, he comes across very cool, calm, and collected, and he looks into it like a professional investigator would. Okay, and he brings up some really, 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 really important questions, and I think that he needs to be heard. So I'm going to give him the rest of the second hour. So here we go. This is Wolfgang Halbig, and he's discussing. This was an interview he did that was released yesterday by the American Free Press, and he's discussing all of the weirdness, we'll say, the Sandy Hook weirdness, and what happened to him when he started to investigate it, because he is a school safety official, and these people knew who he was, and yet he was still threatened for looking into this. So that has to make you wonder why, right? I mean, after all, if it was just a school shooting done by some crazy kid with an AR-15, shouldn't this guy be able to look into it? I mean, he is a school safety official, right? That's what he does. Here we go. Here's Wolfgang.
Joining me on the line is Wolfgang Halbig. Wolfgang, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave, for having me on today.
Wolfgang, I saw something on the internet about you contacting a variety of officials and law enforcement agencies and other agencies regarding the Sandy Hook Elementary School event and somebody coming to your home and threatening you. I want to get into great detail about that in a moment, but before we do, for the benefit of the listeners, can you give them a little bit of background about who you are?
If people want to Google me, they can under Wolfgang W. Halbig, but I came to this country at age 12 from Germany. Dave, I couldn't speak a word of English, and I think, as you'll learn today, they can't shut me up anymore. But, it's such a great privilege to live in this country. I grew up in a little town called Avon Park, Florida. I had so many great role models, coaches, teachers, even the Florida State Trooper that really touched my heart, especially when my mother almost died in a motor vehicle accident. And so guess what? I became a Florida State Trooper because he made a difference in my life. I worked in Miami, Florida in 1974 through 1977, base of the Cocaine Cowboys, and Miami was a tough place to work. And a lot of people don't remember, in those days, we had no paramedics or EMTs. We had no trauma centers or Lifestar helicopters, trauma helicopters. We didn't have the jaws of life. So all of this is learning experience. I stayed, I became a U.S. Customs agent, and you can only put so many people in jail, and that's not who I am, and that's not what I wanted to do. I want to prevent people from going to jail, so I got into education, was in education for 35 years, became a teacher, coach, head football, baseball, became an assistant principal. So I've done the whole gamut. I've been both law enforcement and education, and that's why Sandy Hook is really, really important to me because I'm a national school safety consultant. I travel the country. I don't think there's a state I've not been in, and I only work for school superintendents and school board members who contract me. So there is a nexus as to why I'm really passionate about finding the truth as to what happened on December 14th, 2012.
Definitely somebody who has been lived, and is continuing to live the American dream.
I have 2 sons and I have 2 granddaughters. I cannot tell you how privileged I am. I mean, it's not a right. I am privileged. When I raised my right hand and became a naturalized citizen, people don't understand. I got goosebumps on my arms. I love America. I love for what it is. You look at the founding fathers. I taught American history in public schools. People sacrificed, and I think our country has to be about the truth. That's the only way we're ever going to move forward. And what I'm starting to see is there's some missing pieces, and that's what I'm trying to find out. And I'm trying to use all of the legal resources, such as the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. I've been doing this for 10 months, asking for these are simple questions. It should not make any parent feel bad. It should not make the school district feel bad, or the Newtown Police Department, or the Connecticut State Troopers. Simple questions, and for 10 months they have refused to respond to any of my Connecticut Freedom of Information requests.
Well, let's go back to December 14th, 2012. What was it about Sandy Hook that made you question it, and when did you start questioning it?
Well, I started questioning it about a week after the event unfolded. I'll be honest with you, I was in shock. When I watched that thing on national news unfold, dear God, children are being shot and killed in an elementary school. Teachers are losing their lives in an elementary school. To be honest with you, as a national school safety consultant, I was in shock. I couldn't believe it because I was an expert witness in the Columbine incidents in 1999. I was at Columbine. I was in that media center. So it just brought back a lot of memories. It took me about a week to figure something out, and I questioned myself, why would they not do this? And these were simple things that I was looking at, that in any active shooter incident we have today, there are certain things that unfold because every school emergency has 4 distinct time periods. And what I was looking at is the first 10 minutes. What happened on Sandy Hook during the first 10 minutes of the shooting on December 14, 2012? And I'm amazed that they didn't do these things.
Why don't you run through what they were supposed to do within the first 10 minutes?
From the first time the 911 call comes in and they activate law enforcement and the call went out, all hands on deck. That means every police officer was notified there were shots fired at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Well, you know, when you close your eyes, as me as a state trooper, when I get a call that there's a fatality, I'm trying to picture what I got to do as I'm driving and trying to get there as quickly as possible to save people's lives. What I'm amazed at is that when the police arrived on the scene, they parked a quarter of a mile from the front door of the school, knowing that shots are being fired inside the school. Why would you park a quarter of a mile? I mean, time is of the essence, and everything that they've been trained on and they've been practicing is neutralize the threat as quick as possible. Don't wait for other people. If you're the first officer on the scene, boy, you get in there, you find the threat, you neutralize this, and you save as many as you can. Parking a quarter of a mile away, and they're parking on Crestview or something Drive, that's now how police respond.
Have you ever seen this type of police response before where they would park that far away?
Let me tell you something. I thought Columbine was bad on how we responded in trying to save children and teachers' lives then. And you know what I liked about Columbine? Law enforcement, Dave, actually came out and said, hey, we did bad. We were wrong. We should not have sat back and waited 3 hours before we entered the school. Because remember, that was a hostage situation. Law enforcement, for the first time, and even medical services said, we should have done better. We should have got in there quicker. We should have neutralized the threat. So the new protocols out of Columbine tells us today that the first unit arriving on the scene, you take action. You don't wait for your other friends to show up to help neutralize the threat. It's an active shooter event, and they know how to do it. It just didn't happen at Sandy Hook.
Because I read the document that you sent over to me, there are a lot more anomalies here.
Oh, many.
What shocked me, and I'm sure that a lot of people feel the same way, and they want to find out, how can this be? When you were requesting some information that somebody actually paid you a visit, can you, for the listeners, lead up to how that visit occurred? What were you in the process of doing that really precipitated those people to come and pay you a visit before we even get to what they actually wanted from you?
Well, you know, basically my simple questions were, why no trauma helicopters? The scene at Sandy Hook was neutralized within 11 minutes. The school was deemed to be safe. Well, think about it. You got 20 children, 6 staff members who've supposedly been shot. They're seriously injured. Where's the trauma helicopters? Those are the quickest and the best medical services that any child or any school staff member can receive. And no trauma helicopters were ever requested. The next thing, why would you not let your paramedics and EMTs, who are just 500 yards down the road from the Sandy Hook Volunteer Fire Department, why would you not let them go inside the building to treat those that are injured or severely shot, maybe clinging to life? Who declared all of those 26 people dead within the first 11 minutes? Connecticut law states that only a doctor can declare them dead. Legally dead. And so these are things that I was asking for. Who, when, why, and I think the next thing I know is I've got 2 homicide investigators from the Lake County Sheriff's Office where I live, and I mean, I'm well known in the community. I was the director of risk management for the local school district. I've been the director for school safety for a school district of 65. People know me. Here, I've got 2 law enforcement officers, homicide investigators walking up to my door, my house, ring my bell, and they're telling me that they need to talk to me. I said, sure, fine, come in. They were telling me that if I don't stop asking questions about the Sandy Hook school shooting, that the Connecticut State Police is going to file charges, felony charges against me for harassment. And I looked at them, and to be honest with you, Dave, I mean, you talk about a threat. They're trying to intimidate me. And here I am. I'm a former law enforcement officer, both state and federal. I followed the legal guidelines of the Connecticut State Freedom of Information Act, and they're threatening me and intimidating me to stop asking questions. Now, here's a problem, and that's what even got me fired up even more when they started bringing people to my house.
Let's go back a little bit here. Who did you actually contact? You remember the individuals and organizations that you actually contacted to request the information?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing you do is you start with the Newtown Public Schools.
When did you start this?
I probably started 2 months after the incident. I mean, I've got all the records and copies of every email, every request I ever made. And Dave, I did it very politely. I always thanked them for their help. Please, I'm just trying to solve a puzzle. Because every crime, Dave, every crime, and your law enforcement friends will tell you this, every homicide, every crime is a puzzle. And it's very easy to put together. You got to have the pieces. It's not what people think. It's not misdirection. A puzzle is a piece, and it has to fit into another piece. And you don't go forward till you match everything up. And Sandy Hook, it's a puzzle. But guess what? The pieces don't fit, Dave. The pieces will not fit. And I'm going to tell you why. Why in the world? Never have I ever heard of this. Why would the FBI out of New Haven, why would the FBI classify the Sandy Hook investigative report on the shooting? Why would you classify something like that?
Has that ever been done before?
Never. Even Columbine, even Virginia Tech, Bethel, Alaska, Jonesboro. I mean, I can name them over. I can tell you all the shootings. Never has an FBI agency ever classified a investigative report on a school shooting. And you know what? You know this, Dave. I promise you that President Obama, Attorney General Eric Holder, and former director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, I promise you they had their report in their hands within 72 hours of that shooting. Why did they make all the parents, why did they make America wait 11 months to give us this report, which is so much misinformation and misdirection? Dave, I mean, something is not right. And the puzzle has to be put together, and that's what I'm working on.
You went to work contacting all of them. The date was approximately 2 months after, so let's just say it was middle of February approximately.
February, yeah.
Right.
February, I started sending Connecticut Quest for Freedom of Information.
When was it that these law enforcement officials from Lake County showed up on your door? What was that date?
Right before Christmas.
So basically you had been inquiring since February of 2013,
right,
and almost the whole year, and then I guess they got tired of you asking questions,
yep,
and so they sent these 2 fellas. Who were they exactly? Homicide detectives, you said?
Yeah, they worked for the Lake County Sheriff's Office, and they were 2 homicide investigators. I got their business card. I'm just appalled at the fact that the meeting is almost in a threatening and intimidating manner, like they were going to threaten and intimidate me.
That's what I want to actually have you go over, if you could. What time was it that this happened?
It's about 10 a.m. in the morning. Just sitting here working on some work product for a training session that I have to do for the Florida School Board Association. It's about school safety. When all of a sudden the doorbell rings and
right,
there are 2 people.
They're at the door. You opened it up. You were probably a little bit surprised. Could you tell right away they were law enforcement?
No, they were in plain clothes.
Okay. Did they talk first, or did you say, what can I help you with?
No, they introduced themselves. You know, they showed me their identification, their badges, and they basically said, we need to have a conversation. And I said, well, come on in, sit down, make yourself comfortable. And then they read off my resume. I mean, somehow they did a lot of homework. They knew about my military service. They knew about me being the Florida State Trooper and the Customs agent. They knew about me being a teacher. They knew about me being a National School Safety Consultant. I mean, they had a list of all the things that I've ever accomplished.
They had your dossier. Somehow they acquired it. They put it together, which is kind of a little, I guess, East German-ish.
Reminds me, bad days.
Exactly. Keeping files on regular people, regular, hardworking American people. They went right into reading off parts of your dossier. They went right into that, right?
Yeah. And
okay,
they even said, hey, we thank you for your service to the military. I'm going, what are you doing?
How long did this whole dossier reading take? Just a couple minutes?
It was pretty lengthy. I mean, somebody did the homework.
What was the next thing that happened in your meeting?
Well, basically, the next thing said that if I don't stop, the Connecticut State Police were going to file charges, and they recommended that I hire an attorney. And I said, there's no way in the world that I'm going to hire an attorney because I'm following the procedures of the Connecticut State Freedom of Information Act. I mean, if anybody ought to be arrested, I said, you tell those guys they ought to be arrested for failing to comply by the law of Connecticut. And I said, you can tell them right now, I will not stop. I will not stop, and that's how I ended my conversation.
Mm-hmm. How long was the whole meeting?
Probably about 15, 20 minutes.
And you said you will not stop. Did you stand up and walk them to the door?
Absolutely.
So they weren't very nice to you, you're saying?
I don't think they were very polite at all.
So they came into your home.
Yeah.
Did you offer them any coffee or tea or anything?
No.
And they had an attitude, like a threatening attitude? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, that if I don't comply, that bad things are going to happen to me.
Nothing's happened yet, then?
No, not yet. And I haven't stopped asking. I mean, matter of fact, I did a public records request this morning to Newtown Public Schools. Here's the thing, Dave. They do not return any phone calls. I called the facilities director. I've called the superintendent's office, the secretary to the school board members. I've emailed the school board members, each personally with the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. I have contacted Chief Kehoe, Captain Rios, Lieutenant Cinco. I mean, every key player in this puzzle. Remember, I called this a puzzle because they're a piece of that puzzle. They refused to call me back. I called the Department of Education in Connecticut, and I complained about the ethics that this district is displaying for the fact they're not being professional by returning phone calls. When I was a principal, and I didn't return a phone call within a reasonable amount of time, they came after me. People were really, really upset.
Sure.
Newtown, Connecticut, the school district, they don't return phone calls.
I know what you're saying. It always amazed me and shocked me how people, not just there, but in general nowadays, they just don't have the courtesy to get back to you.
Yeah, but we're an educational environment. I mean, I lived 35 years being an educator. I've always learned to be respectful. I've always learned to return phone calls in a timely manner. You know what? I may not have liked to return the phone call. I may not like talking to you, Dave, as a parent. But guess what? That's my responsibility. I had to do it, okay? These people, they don't return phone calls. The chief of police, forget it. Captain Rios, forget it. Paul Vance, forget it. He doesn't have a clue. They just don't return phone calls.
From everything that you've seen and heard, what do you suspect about Sandy Hook?
I suspect, in my professional opinion, as a consultant and doing this for a long, long time, I think it's a scripted event that took place. I think it was in planning for maybe 2.5 years. If you look at the information that I provide others just to look at, there is no way, if you read depositions or their transmissions, police transmissions don't lie, okay? Being a former police officer, the public doesn't understand how to listen to radio transmissions. But when a police officer comes on the police dispatcher communication system, it says we have multiple weapons inside the classroom, rifles and a shotgun. Now, this is a sworn law enforcement officer who's been trained, who tells America, who tells all of us that, hey, I've got multiple weapons, I got a rifle, and I have a shotgun, and nobody can find the shotgun. Where did it go? I mean, simple things. And then you have a police officer at 9:45 in the tape. He finds a girl in the hallway. He finds a kindergarten girl in the hallway, and guess what? He sends her back into room 8. Well, the public doesn't understand this. Room 8 is the crime scene. That's where they've got numerous children. They've been shot to death. Teachers been shot to death. And the policeman's going to send this little kindergarten girl back into room 8. Then you got 2 Connecticut State troopers go into room 10. Guess what, Dave? Room 10 is the crime scene. They go into room 10 and they find a boy in the bathroom. His name is redacted. And then he tells them, which is them, so there has to be more than one, to stay in the room and they'll be back after the school's been made safe. Dave, they're going to leave those kids in that room with all those dead bodies and people injured, teacher dead? That is not police protocol. That's just not how we work in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Until they explain that to me, I'm not stopping.
That's cool. Do you believe that children were killed?
No. You know what? That was hard for me just to say. But when you look in totality, and I'm going to say this to you, Dave. Do you have children, Dave?
I have 3 sons.
Can I tell you what, Dave? If something were that to happen, God hope it never happens to any of us, okay? But let's say we have a child that's been shot and killed in the school, and they're at the morgue. Just like, remember I was a state trooper? I had to take many people to the morgue. And I'll tell you what, I know what tears look like. I know what pain looks like. I did it for 3 years. I cannot believe that parents of those children who died or loved ones would not want to see their own child. I can't believe that the medical examiner did not allow the parents to view the bodies of their own children. I, as a parent, I want to touch the hand of my son or daughter. I want to hug him. I don't care how many bullet holes they have in him.
Right.
I am going to touch my child. Don't you dare give me a picture or show me a picture of my child. I want to touch my child. That is unheard of, Dave.
Yeah,
that is unheard of. You as a parent, you would kick the door down.
Oh, of course. They couldn't stop me.
Well, how do we sit back as a society and accept that to be a fact? It's part of the puzzle, and it doesn't fit.
Did you get any documents at all?
Wow, absolutely nothing.
What are you basing all of your theories off of?
Think about the questions that I'm asking, okay? One, they should have responded. How simple is this? I called Lifestar, which is the trauma services out of Danbury. I mean, I do my homework. They said, Mr. Halbig, we were never requested on that morning, okay? We were shocked and surprised. We were ready. We thought we were going to go to Sandy Hook. They had helicopters ready to go, but they were never asked. And so here's my premise. My premise is, Dave, it wasn't anybody there to be treated. Where was the ambulances? Why did it take an hour and a half, supposedly, for somebody to be transported to Danbury Hospital? And here's the one that really gets me, being a police officer. You have a Lieutenant Cinco for the Newtown Police Department. Now, this is a guy with 24 years of experience. On that morning, he's happening to be working an off-duty detail at a construction site, maybe a mile and a half from Sandy Hook School, and the call goes out, all hands on deck, which means everybody. He refuses to leave his off-duty work for 2.5 hours, and then he shows up. Why would you not, as a police officer, break away and go to that school to neutralize the threat? Because he knew something's not right. There are so many discrepancies. Remember, it's simply a puzzle, a simple puzzle, because guess what? Based on the Connecticut State Police report, you have one shooter, supposedly Adam Lanza. Number 2, he shot his way in the front door. Number 3, he fired 153 rounds because of the shell casing. Number 4, we've got 6 bodies. Number 5, we got a black Honda Civic parked out in front with all 4 car doors open, with a shotgun supposedly in the front seat. Who shut the doors? Who took the shotgun and put it in the trunk? I mean, you're tampering with a crime scene. You don't touch things. It's a crime scene. There are so many discrepancies. And you know what? Nobody wants to answer the questions.
Where are you going to go from here? Are you going to keep doing it?
Well, I think the next thing I'm going to do is right now I'm going to try to raise a lot of money, some funds. I think there are a lot of people out there who really, really believe in learning the truth.
I'm going to pause it right there because the break's coming up. I will pick it up coming right back in from the break. So we'll come right back in, and I will literally pick it right back up with Wolfgang. Bring it right back in and go right to Wolfgang. And then the rest of the second hour, you're going to hear the rest of this interview. As I told you, he brings up some really good questions. So if you don't think there's anything shady about Sandy Hook, maybe after tonight you will. Maybe you'll go reinvestigate it with a little less emotion and more logic. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right back into it. American Free Press and their interview with Wolfgang Halbig about the weirdness and inconsistencies in the official story of the Sandy Hook massacre.
So many discrepancies. Remember, it's simply a puzzle, a simple puzzle, because guess what? Based on the Connecticut State Police report, you have one shooter, supposedly Adam Lanza. Number 2, he shot his way in the front door. Number 3, he fired 153 rounds because of the shell casing. Number 4, we've got 6 bodies. Number 5, we got a black Honda Civic parked out in front with all 4 car doors open, with a shotgun supposedly in the front seat. Who shut the doors? Who took the shotgun and put it in the trunk? I mean, you're tampering with a crime scene. You don't touch things. It's a crime scene. There are so many discrepancies. And you know what? Nobody wants to answer the questions.
Where are you going to go from here? You're going to keep doing it?
Well, I think the next thing I'm going to do is right now I'm going to try to raise a lot of money, some funds. I think there are a lot of people out there who really, really believe in learning the truth. And, you know, they call them conspiracy nuts, and they call them all kind of names. You got a guy named Jim Tracy. What a nice man, college professor. And all he did is question what happened on that day, and they try to get him fired out of his job. I mean, you got people who spend all of their lives in education teaching others, and what they teach, it's okay to question. There's nothing wrong in trying to question what happened. And they try to get him fired. Well, here's my point. What I'm trying to do is raise a lot of money, and I think the only way we're ever going to get the truth, I'm going to hire some attorneys, and we're going to depose some of the key players that I mentioned, okay? They need to be put under oath, and they need to testify in the deposition, and then I'll be happy. Because if you lied during the deposition, that's a felony.
Have you ever questioned an event like this before in the past?
Never. I was an expert witness in Bethel, Alaska. Principal got shot in the face. 9th grader got shot. Jonesboro, Arkansas. Middle school kids. I was an expert witness there. Columbine. I was there. Never, ever did I question police or the authority as to response and how they managed the incident. I trust them. The system has to be trustworthy. We have to know that we protect our children and that parents have a right to know. And it's not just the parents there. I think all of us in America has a right to know. Because Sandy Hook, if it's done one thing to this nation, it's raised the level of panic and fear in every public, private, and parochial school. We have now school districts overreacting because of Sandy Hook. And we don't know if that's even a true incident that happened. We have panic and fear running amok across this country.
You're convinced that you're not going to get anywhere with your Freedom of Information Act request, right?
Oh, it hasn't worked for 10 months. You know, the next thing in law is that you file civil lawsuits against the school district, police department, and then you start deposing people, Dave. The only way you're ever going to get the truth is by getting them to raise their right hand. Because if you lie in a deposition and if you're caught in that lie, there's a lot of things that you can lose. You can go to jail and you can lose your retirement. And I think that's what's happening is they're counting on nobody's ever going to do this.
Well, obviously no one else is doing it except for you to this degree, but have you ever been to Newtown, Connecticut?
Not yet.
Are you planning on going there?
Yeah, I'll probably be there next month.
Do you think that you'd be able to uncover some things actually being on the ground in the field, as it were?
Well, since they poured down the school, that's another one, you know, tearing down Sandy Hook Elementary School. Remember I told you I was in the media center at Columbine?
Right.
I saw the blood. I saw the crime scene. Dave, you would not believe how ugly. The body fluids, the blood, the brain matter. I mean, it was everywhere, okay? They didn't tear down Columbine. They rebuilt it. They renovated it. They made it as nice as possible. One of the things that I asked from the Newtown Public Schools, what environmental company did you contract to come in to remove all the biohazards, such blood, bodily fluids, brain matter? You know what they said to me on the phone when they did answer? Well, it wasn't really the person I was looking for. They said, what are you talking about? Can you imagine? That's 45 to 60 gallons of blood with 26 people. That's a lot of blood.
That is a lot of blood.
Stained carpet, blood splattered everywhere on the furniture. Who cleaned it up? Dave, think about this with your listeners. What is wrong with just saying what the company's name is and when did they come and do it and what was the cost of the project? How simple is that? It's not going to offend anybody. It's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. It shows that you were responsible and you did all the right things. They won't even tell you that. I asked a question in the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. Who installed the security system at Sandy Hook? Just give me the name, the contractor, the cost of the project, who paid for it. I don't want to know where the cameras are. I don't want to put anybody at risk. They won't even give me the name of who the person they hired to put in the system. Wow. And they cite that if they give me the name, it would put all the children at risk. How is that putting the children at risk? I'm just asking for the contractor's name and the cost of the project. And I even put in there big bold letters. I do not want to know where the cameras are, just the cost of the project. When was it done? Now, how simple is that? That's public record. It's taxpayer dollars, Dave.
It seems like there's a cover-up here. Would you say that?
Absolutely. And I will say it is, because when you refuse to respond to simple requests, something is not right. Every one of the questions that I ask on your program today, guess what? Shouldn't they be responded to? I mean, they're very simple questions. Dave, who declared 26 people dead within 11 minutes? especially when Connecticut state law says only a doctor can do that. And my favorite one is the registered nurse, Sally Cox. They didn't find her for 4 hours in the front office. They had SWAT team after SWAT team after SWAT team. Now, you're going to tell me that you can't find the secretary and a registered nurse in the front office after 4 hours? She's in the closet? You've got to be kidding me. Is that how we function as a SWAT team? And then when they bring her out, they tell a registered nurse to cover her eyes because they don't want her to see the blood. What do you think registered nurses do?
There's too many question marks here.
They're puzzles. It's not a hoax. I think it's an elaborate plan over 2 years. I think somebody did a great job planning this event. When do you ever see a big traffic sign that says everyone must sign in the morning of one of the worst shootings ever? You got a big old traffic sign flashing, everyone must sign in. What the hell is that about? We don't do that. We didn't do that at Columbine. We didn't do that in all the other tragic shootings. Porta potties within 3 hours. Boy, somebody is efficient. That's the last thing you're thinking about is porta potties. The thing that you and I are talking about this morning, they should never offend any parent if this event truly happened. I'm very sensitive. I don't want to offend anybody. But these are simple questions that we as homicide investigators, we need to know, and we should know. And every police agency across the country should know.
Yeah, of course they shouldn't be offended because here's a former law enforcement professional who was shocked by the fact that these protocols were not followed, so all you're doing is going by instinct. So yeah, I don't see why anybody would be offended. They shouldn't be. You're just asking some questions.
So why would you threaten me to be arrested if I don't stop?
That's why I wanted to talk to you. I would be very much interested in hearing what went down when you go to Sandy Hook next month. Would that be a possibility to have you back to talk about that?
Sure. I'm going to go to school board meeting. I want to look them eyeball to eyeball. The one thing I've learned in law enforcement, it's hard to do it on the phone or fax or emails, but when you look at people in the eyes, here's another one, okay? Super Bowl 2013, one of the greatest events in America. And when a child or children perform at such an event, it would be a nice thing to do to publish their names in the Super Bowl magazine, something that they could keep for the rest of their lives. Why would you not publish the name of the 26 children and the chorus director in the Super Bowl magazine?
I don't know.
What is there to hide? If that was my son and daughter and they were having to be singing at Sandy Hook and they were going to perform at the Super Bowl, my gosh, can you imagine having their name in the Super Bowl magazine?
No, of course you want
something that they would have for the rest of their life, when they're 30, 40, to tell their children, look, I got to sing at the Super Bowl. What is the cover-up? Why would you not give out the names? These are things that they just do not make sense. And I cannot believe people sit back and they listen to the national news media, that idiot box telling them what they should believe.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole other story, unfortunately. But what if some listeners want to get in touch with you? Is there a way they can do that?
Yeah, you got my number, 352-729-2559. I'm very open. I have nothing to hide. I only have one name. I don't have multiple names. I'm not AKA. I'm just Wolfgang Halbig, and I spend my lifetime doing this, trying to help children and teachers and parents. And why would you not tell us what happened? Why is a report classified? That's the one that really...
That's what you've got to find out.
I'm working on Senator Webster here in Florida. I'm going through some of the senators to try to get a copy of the classified report or get it declassified. There is no rhyme or reason why we cannot get the FBI, especially when President Obama, on the day of the tragedy on national news, he says, I will use every resource in my office to investigate this heinous crime. Well, okay, you've made a promise. Then why can't we see what that report is? Would you not agree?
Of course.
Well, he made it on national news. I mean, he's got his tears flowing. I will use every resource of my office. And he said on the newscast, I have directed Robert Mueller, director of the FBI, to take charge of this investigation. And guess what? The FBI report's not included in the Danbury State Attorney's findings. They refused to publish anything the FBI said in the report that was released to all of us in the public domain. Why would you do that?
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot more questions than answers, but if this was in fact some kind of an event that had been in the works for a couple of years, as you say, and I think a lot of people probably are asking the same question in order to really wrap their minds around something like this. Could it be pulled off? Wouldn't there be just like so many people who would have to be involved in it? It would run into the thousands. Is that something that you've thought about?
Yeah. Remember one thing about Watergate, follow the money? I have never seen that many fundraisers. So much money has been collected, and I can't believe this. Remember I told you I was a director of risk management? I have never, ever, remember I told you I was 67, I've never, ever seen a school shooting in which there are not lawsuits filed by the parents against the school district for negligence.
Right.
Not one lawsuit, not one, has been filed by the parents against the Newtown Public School System. That's unheard of. There's $17 million raised to United Way. Every parent, never heard of this before, every parent, in lieu of flowers, make money contributions to this bank. Every parent got a big chunk of money from that $17 million fundraiser. Eric Holder, Attorney General, comes in and gives all the police officers a big check. There is so much money involved in there. And I think there's other benefits that I would look at. I mean, I look at witness relocation. I would look at people not having to pay their taxes for the next 10 years. I just think there's a lot of deals going on. Dave, I do not believe, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I believe in only facts. And I believe this crime, supposed crime that was committed, it's a puzzle. And nobody can show me the pieces to put together in finishing this puzzle. They don't fit. No matter how hard you try, Dave, you and your listeners will not be able to put this puzzle together. Why? It's simple. One shooter, 26 bodies, 153 casings, broken window, black car. Forget the mother. Just focus on Sandy Hook. Why does it have to be classified? We know who the shooter is. He's dead. You know he had autism. He has Asperger's. Being a PE teacher many years ago, one thing we learned about children with Asperger's, they have very, very poor coordination. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that, actually.
Oh, let me tell you, this is the common denominator with children with autism or Asperger's. They have very, very poor motor skills.
I knew that with autism, but I didn't know that about Asperger's.
Autism and Asperger's, both of them have the same thing. Now, Asperger's, they're higher functioning academically. They're a little smarter. They're better academically prepared. But autism and Asperger's, both of them, have very poor motor skills. And when you watch those children in our PE classes, 15, 16, 17, very poor muscle tone. So how does he carry all of that? Remember I told you earlier in the show that the policeman said we have a rifle and a shotgun? Well, how does he carry a rifle and a shotgun and handguns and all those bullets? How does he carry all of that and then shoot 26 people 3 to 11 times in 11 minutes? I'm not that good, and I'm a good police officer.
Right, and no one was wounded, right?
Nobody was wounded. And then you look at Columbine. You remember this? 15 dead. 23 seriously wounded. And these two guys had all the time in the world to shoot all those kids dead. They wounded them. They just kept moving. Dave, there are too many questions, and that's why I'm in trouble. That's why people want me to quit asking. These are simple questions that any investigator, any homicide investigator should be asking today. The question you and I need to keep asking, why have you closed your eyes? Why are you not asking those questions?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're on the job, seriously, because it's these type of things that would prevent the normal person from moving forward, because you're coming up against all these obstacles. This can't be easy mentally in order to... You're trying to figure something out, and you're coming up against brick walls everywhere you go. It sounds to me like you're not going to stop, though, right?
I'm not, because I think the only way I think the way I'm going to stop is when I get them in a room with an attorney, with a stenographer, and I'm going to get them to raise their right hand, and I'm going to get them to tell me the truth. And the questions are going to be just like what we talked about today. I'm going to find the person in charge. Why would you not order trauma helicopters for those children on that morning? Now think about the person at the other end who's got that hand up. What are they going to say? Then I'm going to find the person who should allow those paramedics and EMTs inside the school to treat those children and maybe save some lives. I'm going to find the person and find out, why did you not let him in? I'm just going to find out who made the decision that these bodies are legally dead. Who made that decision? Dave, that's the only way that we will ever find the truth of what happened on Sandy Hook.
If this conspiracy goes all the way up to the White House, which of course there's a possibility that it does. I don't like to discount anything. I like to keep my mind open to everything, which is a rarity I've found in life, as you've found out, I'm sure. But if this does go up to these highest levels, don't you think that if they do know that you're going to want to pursue this to the very end, don't you think that possibly your life might be in danger right now or in the very near future?
Dave, I'm 67 years old. I've had a great life. I've met so many wonderful people. I think I've lived my life as a U.S. citizen should, having the privilege of being a U.S. citizen. I think I've done many good things. Whatever would happen to me from this day forward, I had a great journey. But this is a huge tragedy. And if people use children and teachers as a prop to enhance somebody's agenda, shame on you. And I can tell you this, President Obama, Eric Holder, and Robert Mueller, they're not going to sit in their offices for 11 months waiting for the Connecticut State Attorney to finish his report. I can promise you, look at this. Boston Marathon bombing in 72 hours. They shot and killed one of the suspects. They shot and injured the other suspect hiding in a boat. They knew everything about their families, where they've been, who their friends are, who they eat dinner with. They knew about their colleges. They knew everything in 72 hours. Now, why are you and I having to wait 11 months for the state attorney in Danbury to tell us what happened on that day? The president's not going to wait 11 months to get a report. You think he's going to like it when the Danbury state attorney says, well, we really have not finished our investigation yet? You got to be kidding me. That's the president of the United States, attorney general. They know, and that's why it's classified.
Well,
shame on them.
You're willing to die for this.
Yes, I will. Sorry, you probably think I'm crazy, but
I know.
who I am.
I don't think you're crazy. That's what you decided. I think it's honorable, personally, to go for the truth like that. I wish more people were like that.
Well, Dave, it's a nexus. If I were just a carpenter or plumber, if I went to work in the stock market every day, I probably wouldn't be interested, okay? But how do I stand traveling across the street? Like the other day, I stood in front of 200 Florida school board members in Tampa talking about how to make their schools safer. They're looking at me asking questions. What do we do? What can we do? Should we have police officers? Should we do this? And here, it's all about Sandy Hook. Well, look what happened in Sandy Hook. Well, we don't really know. How do I tell people how to make their schools safer when we don't even have the truth about Sandy Hook? See, there is a nexus. I do this for a living. I trained over 3,500 school police officers through the Justice in Cops program. I travel the country, and they pay me to train people. So that's why I'm so passionate about asking the questions, simple questions. Simple questions. I don't know how I do it, but I'd like to host a conference in Orlando, Florida, for anybody who's seeking the truth on Sandy Hook. There are so many people who have invested so much amount of time that have questions just like I do, like you do, like every parent should have. And I hope they come to Orlando. We'll probably have a 2-day workshop, and I'm going to ask them to bring whatever they have that they think is something that they're concerned about. I think it's healthy to have a conversation. I think it's healthy to talk about it because guess what? It can happen again somewhere else.
Yeah. When is this conference?
I don't know. We're working on it. I'm trying to do two things. Get the attorneys. One way to really, really cause a stir is sue the NFL first.
Because of the Super Bowl?
Yeah. They have a vested interest because they allowed those kids to sing at the venue. They paid for their expenses, hotel, food. They're actually part of it, and they need to disclose. There's no reason for them not to disclose who these people are.
Have you contacted them yet?
No. I'm just telling you, you're the first person who heard this. Remember, I told you it has to go the legal direction. People on a blog or people just keep writing. It's just not going to go anywhere until you make people raise their right hand and you put them in the seat and you ask simple questions that should have simple response. That's what we're not doing as a country. We're so disorganized, so fragmented, and that's what they're counting on. They're counting on us for being fragmented. I got to tell you, when I came to this country at age 12, I was scared to death. I'm in public schools. I remember being in the 5th grade. I couldn't speak a word of English. They didn't have ESOL. I sat there in the back of the room every day. And eventually I got a scholarship to play football out in Texas, and it sort of changed my life. Athletics changed my life. So, it's just something I give back.
Yeah.
My wife always says you talk too honestly. You need to speak politically correct.
I don't think so.
Well, politicians speak politically correct. But Dave, when I'm a state trooper, think about 1974. Remember I told you, no EMTs, no paramedics, no jaws of life. When you come to some of the most horrific accidents, All you have is a crowbar and a hammer and a chisel. You have a first aid kit. Who are you going to call to help you save your life? There ain't nobody you can call. It's you. These young police officers don't remember what those days were like. They look at today, they call it paramedic, they call it trauma helicopters. They just do the police reports. They don't touch the bodies anymore, okay? We didn't have rubber gloves. Remember I said I paid my dues? I don't think there's a day I didn't see death. When you see a child dead, children dead, when you see children burned to death in the car, when you see children drowned in a detention pond, in Miami they got nothing but canals. And when you have to knock on somebody's door at 3 o'clock in the morning and the light comes on and they look through that little peephole and here's a state trooper in full uniform and they open the door, they know something's wrong and you got to give them the worst news that they'll ever hear. And then you watch their face. Their heart just stops. They hug you, they cry on you, and then you got to take them in your car, take them to the morgue. You got to identify the bodies, and guess what? They grab the body, they grab those hands, they kiss them on the forehead.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But see, that's why everything has a nexus. Why would the medical examiner not allow the parents?
It's bothering you, and that's why you're going to get to the bottom of it, I hope.
Well, I just know you. I know you as a dad. If your child was in that morgue, I know what you'd want to do. I know what your wife would want to do.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like I said, they couldn't stop me.
Then how did they stop them?
They'd have to shoot me.
You'd have to shoot me. I'm telling you, you'd have to shoot me.
Right.
I don't care how ugly. I don't care how bad it is. I am going to be with my child.
Wolfgang Halbig, I want to thank you so much for the time you spent explaining all this to the listeners. Thank you for doing what you're doing, because no matter what, you're looking for the truth. And no matter what, people should respect others who do look for the truth, who do look for clarification. And I want to tip my hat to you for doing that. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you when anything significant happens or when you get back from Newtown, Connecticut.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to visit with you and have this conversation today and all of your listeners. And thank you, Dave. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's an article up on Federal Jack I have. It's right under the featured articles section right at the top, or under false flag terrorism and a bunch of other stuff. But the original article with the I think you can download it from there. The podcast is from American Free Press. They did a great job. I'm going to look into getting Wolfgang on. I'm going to contact him and try to interview him and see if he's going to be available. I'd like to pick his brain about a few things. I hope this spurs some type of urge. I don't even know if an urge is the word. I really want people to look into this, to understand the implications of what happened that day. It's when I look at it now, back in the beginning when I used to look at Sandy Hook, when it first happened, I said I wanted everybody to calm down, because rushing to judgment, saying it's false flag right off the bat, is not going to help, especially with all the emotion at the time. So, I wanted to keep a clear, level head about it while looking at it. And I got to tell you, over the course of time, the more and more I look at it, the more evidence that I see, the more it points me in the direction that this whole thing is fake. And people are going to say, "Oh, crisis actors and all this other stuff. Are you one of those nutbags and all that?" First of all, don't call those people nutbags. Okay, even if they were wrong with some of the things that they said, I mean, can you blame them for not trusting the government? Really? And it is believable that they would do something like that. They've done things like that in the past. So, and they've already been chastised enough by all of us. At this point in time, we should all be able to look at this with less emotion and a little bit of logic. And the more I look at this and the more I dig into Sandy Hook, the more I think it was completely fake. And that's a big thing for me to say that. I used to say that it was probably something that happened and they had an MK Ultra mind control guy and they blew it out of proportion, but I don't know. I mean, the more and more I look into this, there's even things that I'm like, wow. And I try to be a skeptic, and there are things that I cannot explain. Wolfgang brings up a lot of them. So I hope this does give you the urge, or a sense of responsibility, maybe, perhaps would be a better way to put it, to research this. We owe it to ourselves. Even if nobody died, we owe it to ourselves because they want to take away our rights. So we think we owe it to ourselves, at the very least. And then you know, Port Arthur massacre, same type of thing. The UK had one, was Dunblane massacre, same type of event.
This is Sparta!
And what happened after both those events? Gun control. And what did they push right after this? Gun control. Just makes one wonder. Anyway, we're out of time. See you all again live Tuesday night. I love you all. The solutions to our problems are an inside job. I'm out of here.